What was it that turned you off on it though? Was it the musical aspect?
Definitely the whole musical aspect for me, because I'm not a huge musical guy. I always thought, just singing and dancing, just maybe not for the whole movie thing. But actually just seeing but when I wanted you guys to see it in theaters, it was just amazing. Just the choreography, the singing, everything was just ridiculous and like just beautiful to me. Like that movie was just so well done. Like, it actually opened my eyes to, like, maybe I wanted to, like, maybe see more musicals and, like, see what's going to go on.
You're a fucking liar.
Fuck you, bitch.
Yeah, Japan has already been on the realistic adaptation game for animes for a long time, but it just doesn't. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it works over there. I'm not really sure.
We don't need to keep this in the realm of culture, specifically anime, though.
Yeah, Stephen King is probably one of the most adapted authors that exists, and there's always a big like split between people who like the books, people who hate the movies,
and J.K. Rowling.
I mean, the biggest one was The Shining. The fact that The Shining. Stanley Kubrick took a lot of liberties.
The Shining, the movie, is just a completely different story from The Shining, the book, and I don't think it's fair to completely.
I mean, they're the same basic story. They're just executed two different ways.
Right.
One is a Stephen King style of narrative, and one is Stanley Kubrick style of narrative.
Right, and they're completely different. I'm not sure it's even the same story, really, when you look at them.
Generally, the basic premise, like the spine is the
premise.
same. Yeah, the premise is the same.
We both had characters.
It's like saying Star Wars and
La La Land are the same.
Star Wars and say Valerian are the same. Space.
The final frontier.
They both got space. They both got Jack Nicholson.
They're both Pickle Rick. But in terms of talking about good adaptations, good animated to live action adaptations, Tony, I know you like Beauty and the Beast, which is what brought us to this conversation in the first place.
Was your stomach?
No.
Why do you think Beauty and the Beast translates so well from animation to live action?
I think because they actually took the ideas and gave them a human form. Is that, I mean, even in the animation it worked well, but when they took it into screen, I thought the biggest thing that moved me is I don't know how CGI works 100%. I'm not that savvy in it, but what they did with the Beast's face and his mannerisms and how he reacted, they gave him an actual human character. So in this adaptation, you felt like the Beast was a human. You can truly see the human in the Beast.
So do you think it was the effort on their part to sort of like really animate the expressions on the Beast's face,
and on the
to give us some sort of like visual cue as to what he's feeling?
Yeah, so that you kind of understood the story even deeper. As opposed to before, it was just a kid's story, like, it's about this girl.
I had to have the kid veil to make it approachable for children.
But
here's my question though: is that not every adaptation has a beast in terms of because in a way the Beast in the live action movie was also animated.
Yeah,
he was CGI.
Yeah,
it's not like they had like props.
That's what I'm saying. But they gave him human kind of story arc. Like they kept that arc.
Okay.
Like, how in other adaptations they kind of when they bring CGI, they kind of just expect the CGI to be cool.
Right.
People be like, oh, I can't believe you see
Transformers.
Like Transformers.
They fucking bank on only the CGI.
Yeah, like they don't really give
else.
Optimus. It's mostly in his voice that you feel the emotion, but they don't give him humanistic tendencies or anything like that.
Even then, it feels a little phoned in.
But yeah, but with Beauty and the Beast, you can besides like Emma Watson's part where she was purely herself acting, they gave like the candle humanistic emotions. Like when there's a scene at the end where they all turn into their human forms, and I was amazed to actually see who was behind the mask. Like Ewan McGregor was the candle. Okay. So Obi-Wan Kenobi was the goddamn candle.
Wait, didn't you see the promotions for it?
Because I didn't.
The promotions for Beauty and the Beast ruined. Took the veil away of who were playing the animated characters.
Because I was on the La La Land hype train. So
you were my brother, Beast.
Basically,
you were the chosen one.
What's that?
I hate you.
Ian McKellen played the
breaks
clock.
The candle.
All these Ian McKellen, that's his name. Yeah, Magneto is the clock. So like these people were so, at least because I didn't know that I didn't know who they were.
Right.
But they were so their characters that I connected with the clock itself. You know what I mean? Like the clock itself made me believe like he was a human it was a clock trying to be human again. Okay. Because they had the clock jokes and the candle jokes and the dumb jokes.
So you think a large part of this was due in fact.
You got the time for this?
Was due in fact due mostly in part to The writing.
Yeah, good writing, and then good performances, of course. But they gave him good writing.
Okay.
Like they built a lot of the movie, the Beast isn't even in it. Like it's mostly like the fixtures kind of dealing with the idea. Spoilers. The idea of the curse and being cursed to be these fixtures and not wanting to be these fixtures because the rose is going to run out of rose petals, and once it runs out, they become inanimate objects. So they're actually dealing with this idea that they're afraid, and you see it. Like there's even a scene with the little teacup kid who's named Chip is like, am I ever going to be a boy again and feel the sun on my skin? And I was like, I wanted to tear up because I was like, you can see the little boy, and the actor wasn't there, you know. You only heard the actor's voice and the animation.
A lot of that goes into the animation because I think recently they've I'm choking. Recently they've like the technology that goes around capturing. Fucking hell, I'm dying.
The face capture and the motion capture that they use in animation nowadays is a lot of high tech.
Yeah, but a lot of it comes from the fact that World of Warcraft pushed that.
They did.
Like in the movie World of Warcraft, I'm forgetting the name of the main
Warcraft.
Warlock. Or I don't know a lot of the. I haven't played World of Warcraft since the first year it came out. But a lot of people have said that the animated characters in World of Warcraft showed more human emotions than the human characters.
I've heard that a lot.
Because the motion capture of like the eyes and the mouth were like fantastic. Like you could see him like nearing crying, like almost about to cry, where his eyes were getting watery.
But the writing again helped because it's like, why is it better than the cartoon one? Is because the cartoon one just had a basic like, woman gets captured by Beast, replaces her father, woman falls in love with Beast, and it's still beautiful because everybody remembers that Disney one. But this new one, I guess the way the writers approached it, you had more of a banter like between the candlestick and the clock, between Emma and all these not Emma, Belle and all these inanimate objects. Like there wasn't a connection that when you got to the end and you got to the part where like they break the curse, you were happy for them. And you were like, oh my god, like they did it, yay. And I was like, well, why do I care? It's a Disney movie, you knew it was gonna happen.
Yeah.
But they had me. Like I was there with them, I was walking with them throughout
They added an element.
whole entire film.
Even though they basically just did the same movie twice, but they added an additional element that made it entertaining.
Because like when I watched the Disney one, it's like, oh, it's just Disney being Disney. But when you watch this one, it felt like a story. It felt like you really got to meet these two characters and you really got to be in this world. And like they even gave more depth into Belle's mom and why she wasn't there anymore, and what happened with her, that she died of the plague, and why the dad left them, and why the dad was a painter, and why if you see the dad's like fucking clock thing, it shows him painting him and his wife in his daughter because it's the last painting he ever did. There was so much depth to the characters in these movies that you kind of really connected. And then like when you get to like Evermore, which is the song the Beast sings, and he talks about the idea that she's gone but she'll never leave him in his mind, you're just like, what? There's like so much relationship here. So it became more than just an adaptation. It was its own movie. It was a retelling of the story that was more compelling than just the average like, oh, Beauty and the Beast story.
So let me present an idea, and let me present you guys with a question here. A lot of anime movies have a restraint on them just because a lot of the anime that are adapted to live action movies, they're really long running animes. Yeah. Like let's say Dragon Ball Evolution. Dragon Ball Evolution was tasked with adapting Dragon Ball, which already has like Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, and now Dragon Ball Super.
Evolution came out with GT?
What's that?
I thought Evolution came out like towards the end of Z, but not before GT. I mean, before GT.
I'm just speaking generally.
Oh, okay.
But
it had a lot of shoes to fill.
Right. Even with just talking about Dragon Ball, like ignoring Z and GT.
Yeah, I mean, Dragon Ball itself is already a long running series.
ABC.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Dragon Ball 1, 2, 3. It had a lot of story to tell and not much time to tell it with. Mm-hmm. Do you think, Tony, that Beauty and the Beast worked on some level because it was a singular story to adapt?
I think it did, but it could, like, some people criticize it saying like, oh, this was just a remake, and I feel like it transcended that plot hole because not only did they adapt the story, they gave it new life. So it wasn't just an adaptation. Mm-hmm. It was like, here's a reimagining from this director's point of view of what this story is, and it was more than what the cartoon brought.
Okay.
And they gave more depth to the characters so that you felt
also, wait, quick, if you guys can, if the audio hears like a little chopping noise, the helicopter's above me. Okay. We live in the ghetto.
Yeah, like deep in
the ghetto.
But so I think it would be like ghetto. If Dragon Ball wanted to do something, it could be that I just go more for like emotional stories and whatnot. But if Dragon Ball wanted to do something, if they wanted to make Evolution good, they could have done like
a better Kamehameha.
Just know like the story arcs of like is it Dr. Gero? Dr. Gero, like the ideas that why he created the Red Ribbon Army and because there is some emotional elements to Dragon Ball and the ideas of Goku, not having a father, his grandpa dying, and coming to this planet all alone. Like they have a lot to work with that they could have really explored, but they just stuck with like, look at the Kamehameha, he's so cool, he's doing, look at his hair is spiky.
Vegeta, the guy with like mega daddy issues.
Yeah, and like and even like if you wanted to do Vegeta, like even his arc itself, there have been so many fan films that even explore just the Trunks arc.
I think the problem that a lot of anime adaptations have is that they try to present you with what is the surface idea of what these animes are. Like
these animes.
Like Dragon Ball Evolution presented us with Kamehameha,
Super Saiyan,
just kung fu fighting.
Like here's this teenage dude named Goku that does a fight crime.
But there was one. There was one called. I don't know what it's called.
Not saying that they all do that,
but there was one from Japan. It was called like Dragon Ball something, and like I forget what it's called. My uncle has it, and it's like it explored the relationship between Goku and Master Roshi, and that was kind of cool to watch. I mean, it wasn't It wasn't like the greatest film of all time, but it was pretty heartwarming because you got to see him. The film took place between when he meets Master Roshi, his journey to find Master Roshi, and the end of his training with Master Roshi, and his relationship with Krillin. And that was a
Japanese only thing.
Yeah, but my uncle has, I should ask him what it is, but it was made in Japan and it was dubbed in Japan. So and then he bought it from like some Japanese website because he's a super hard Dragon Ball Z fan. But and that was good. Like of course it wasn't like great, but it was still good enough to like you enjoy it. You see Goku, and then they had Bulma and all those people. But there was relationships there, and there was story there, and then it all leads up to the big fight when the Red Ribbon Army attacked Master Roshi's island, and it was like that was cool. Like you kind of followed it as opposed to Dragon Ball Evolution. But you could tell it was trying to touch kids because like it's a high school student, right? That's the one where he was like in high school and he's a martial artist and
he meets Titty in the hallway.
Yeah, Chi-Chi.
Same shit.
But it's like. I think, like you said, it all comes down to the writing and the way that writers take these IPs or these ideas and actually build a story from them. Instead of just saying, how do we make this come out in real life?
Right.
Like, how do we make him do a Kamehameha? How can we set up a Kamehameha? How can we set up a Super Saiyan transformation?
There we go, guys. We figured it out. Writing make movie good.
But, and then that just goes to show that, we give credit to directors and all that, but writing is very important. If the writer doesn't tell a story with your characters, people are gonna go watch Ghost in the Shell and feel like it's empty. People are gonna see Valerian and be like, "Oh, it's pretty."
Yeah, writing is the major backbone behind whether a movie makes it or breaks it. Like the Emoji Movie, terrible writing, so there's nothing really to fall back into. Even if there's like good animation, if the animation isn't telling a good story, you have nothing to hold on to. Whereas like if you have shitty animation but a good story, at least you got a good story to follow, despite it being ugly.
And I feel like this is relevant. I was talking about this earlier today. I know we're talking about adaptations, but I feel like this is definitely relevant to that conversation. I was talking about Alien Covenant earlier today, and how it's just it seems to be like an amalgamation of everything before it. It's like if you took Alien 1, Aliens, and then
I never call it Aliens. I always say Alien 2.
and then Prometheus, and then you mush them into one movie, and nothing about
what made them special is
translates to it, because all you're trying to do is you're trying to take what people find iconic or what people think they find iconic, and they're throwing it all together, and it doesn't mean anything because you're not actually trying to tell a story. You're just shoving shit into your movie because you think it'll be cool.
Yeah.
Same thing with the emoji. They were just like, oh, look at these apps and look at these emojis and look at them doing things.
Yeah, but I wouldn't call the Emoji Movie a movie.
That's true.
It's a market. It's an hour and a half long ad.
Yeah, the longest ad in history.
Right. An hour and a half long turd emoji.
Yeah. It's like when you're watching a video and then it goes to an ad. That's what the emoji.
If the ad went for an hour and 30 minutes,
you watch a 10-second video and then like the ad is an hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah. And then you pay to go see it.
Although I do hate when I try to watch a trailer and then they put a trailer before the trailer. I'm like, stop.
One time I don't know, this is nowhere relevant, but I was trying to look up the trailer for Spider-Man Homecoming, and before Spider-Man Homecoming the trailer played, it was a different trailer for Spider-Man Homecoming that had just dropped that day. So I saw both of them at the same time, and I thought that was cool.
Hey man, they're just playing to your interests.
They're just
You looking up the Homecoming trailer? It's the Homecoming trailer.
Oh, see, but like even that, like the ideas of Marvel movies being adapted, that one of the biggest adaptations in history now. Look at that. Like they've done so well because they don't just be like, oh, here's Captain America and he's his shield. Oh my God, like ooh.
But those aren't really rehashings of what stories have been told, right? They're kind of just taking inspiration from the past stories and making their own.
Some
thing.
of them are exactly like
The first
I talk about Iron Man 3 a lot. I really liked Iron Man 3 because it was actually a loose adaptation of one of my favorite Iron Man stories, The Five Nightmares. But it
added in the whole Mandarin thing.
It added in the whole Mandarin thing, and I wouldn't say it made it better. It definitely made it different. I wouldn't say it made it worse. No, it did make it a little bit worse. But
and they wasted a perfectly good actor. Ben Kingsley is a great actor.
Oh yes, yes, he's a great actor.
It's like, let's get this shitty role and just give it to one of the greatest actors of this time.
Or was he such a
maybe
good actor that he was able to make the role shitty?
He's like, this role's so
That's
shit.
true because he was supposed to do that.
Yeah, like he played it so well that you were like, that sucked, but it was like, but he did it so good.
Right.
He got you to elicit that emotion.
Maybe because you had like so
But I
much.
mean, I'm not a fan of Iron Man.
Maybe because you have like so much respect for Ben Kingsley, you're like, really him as a that shitty role, or maybe you just are mad at the fact that such a great actor played such a shitty role.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why probably it made it like so much more worse for people. They're like, really, Ben Kingsley, like for this little crappy thing.
Right. I think what the MCU movies do right, and I think what a lot of adaptations need to do right in this aspect, is to make the movie their own. And not in terms of just adding shit in there just because you can. Like
Don't do the Zack Snyder thing of just add things to make
Spider-Man
it better.
3.
like don't.
But that Spider-Man 3 is its own beast because it's not like it accidentally happened. It was sabotaged by the guy
Yeah,
himself.
because they were adding.
Yeah,
they
just
were adding
added.
things.
Yeah, so he figured he just sabotaged it using their own formula.
Right.
But
Sorry, we cut you off.
no, but
I
Jose
forgot what I was
saying-
talking about.
They make movies their own thing.
Right, they make movies their own thing. They loosely adapt the stories from the comic books. That's why we can't really expect to know what's going to happen in Infinity War because it's going to be completely different. It's going to be objectively almost the same because I'm pretty sure, just like in comic books, there won't be any lasting repercussions. Like
Well,
maybe
I
a
really-
character will die, but
I hope a character dies and it's a lasting effect and everything else. Cause I hate the whole Marvel cop out. Like, oh, he died. But did he really die? No,
You mean the thing they did with Coulson?
With Coulson, I was like, oh, he's dead.
Oh, in their
but
defense-
he's still there.
in their defense, he hasn't shown up in another movie.
That's true. He's
For
only-
all intents and purposes, he's dead. He's dead in the MCU.
he's only in that.
We
movie,
just
so-
Agents
we
of
don't
S.H.I.E.L.D.
we don't talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in this room.
We want to talk about Agents of Smash.
Yeah, we only talk about Hulk and the Agents of Smash. Those are the only agents that I
Thor
talk
and the
about.
Agents of Asgard.
And maybe
Hulk and
maybe
the
Agent
Agents
Peggy
of Smash
Carter
sounds
too.
like the greatest like douchebag gang. They're like, my name's Hulk and we're the Agents of Smash.
That sounds like something Saul would.
It's like if they made the
Oh,
Avengers in high
okay.
school. Like, if they made the high school Avengers, that'd be Hulk and his gang.
No, they're like the college frat boys.
Oh snap! Hulk's coming this way.
With his Agents of Smash.
It's so bad. But yeah, I think that's why Marvel's adaptations of the comic books do so well because
Loose
that,
adaptations rather than strict adaptations.
but not even that.
Right.
They're loose, but they also take the character and they humanize him because they realize that they're bringing comic book characters into a human world. Because in these animated movies, they're technically dealing with like.
I mean, but
like
that kind of sells the comics show. The comics do go into the whole human aspect
No.
of these characters.
Yeah, of course they do. But I'm saying like for
Here's-
a movie to watch, like
Mhm.
they're keeping it on the foreground. Like, cause comic books can go crazy. They can go into like the cosmic world. They can do whatever they want because they have these
They have no limits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But movies, they realize that they don't have limits, but they have to have an understanding is that they have to take these comics and take these messages and bring it to the human mind.
Right.
Mhm.
In a visual way, but not because comic books, like, yeah, you have art,
Right.
you have actual
You can
art
you can
strips
put
that
you can put Spider-Man on the Squirrel homeworld, and it won't look as ridiculous as
Because
It's,
it's
like,
a comic.
it's limited to the artist's ability to draw something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
While as when you bring a movie, it's like, okay, I have an hour. Like, how long is Civil War? Like 2 hours and like 20.
2 hours and 40 minutes.
2 hours
I was
and 40
watching
minutes?
it yesterday
Yeah.
in the
So
background.
you have 2 hours and 40 minutes to take into account everything that's happened before this film, anything that's gonna happen after this film, and have these two characters and tell a story. And not only tell a story, it has to be lasting because ideally, like what happens in this movie was impactful. Is that you had Iron Man, you have Captain America, and they all talk about the realest scene is when Iron Man is trying to kill Winter Soldier, and he grabs him, and he says, he's my friend, and he goes, but he killed my mom. And, like, that's the one time you've seen Robert Downey Jr. transcend and become human. He's not Iron Man anymore. He's not a superhero. He's a human being that was feeling emotions and was so controlled by these feelings that he was about to murder a man. Iron Man, the superhero, was about to commit murder because this man killed his mom. And you're just like, what? And then Captain America's like, I can't let you do that. And he's fighting Iron Man, and you see the twin.
But it's not like the comics.
It's not. See, but because they knew.
He didn't kill his mom in the comics.
He didn't. But it's because they knew, like, how do you break Iron Man? How do you destroy a man that is so cocky and so self-assured?
You hit him in his parents' issues.
You
Get him right in the mommy issues.
you hit him where it hurts, and he cared about his mom. And it's kind of established at the beginning of the film, where you see that, like, he's with his mom, and he's like, he's not really connected to his dad, but you could tell he cares about his mom. And then, like,
and also why the whole thing with the mom losing the kid hurts him, because he's a kid who lost the mom.
Right.
So then it's like, but you see it happening. So when it builds up to this fight, like, it gives purpose to the battles, it gives purpose to the action. Like, even the airport scene, it's not just force. It's a big, like, they're here and they're about to fight because Iron Man's telling him, stop it, Cap. Like, come on, like, sign the goddamn thing. Cap's like, no. And then they get pushed to fight. So it's like the stakes need the action as opposed to just
the next Saturday.
As opposed to
busy today. I'll do it later, Iron Man.
Can you imagine being a superhero and it's your business and it's like Iron Man's like we gotta fight in the airport on June 11th.
I will see you there
And
with my team of superheroes.
Captain America's like, actually I can't. That doesn't work for me.
Winter Soldier Man got something planned that day.
Let's not next week or the week after, but anything after that, I'm free.
But see, and even in the airport scene, they did iconic scenes from the comics, like the battle between Ant-Man and turning into Giant Man. Like, those stuff were in the comics. Or the idea when Spider-Man and Captain America had that banjo, where he's like, oh, where are you from? Brooklyn, New York. That's in the comics. Like, those are small things that were in the comics that were brought to screen.
Yeah, but they're not completely exactly copied over.
They're not copied
and
over.
That's the problem I think most fans have, is that they want to see these comics translated completely.
That's the one thing that annoys me so much from people who see adaptations happening. It's like, it better be like the comics. Like, you already read that fucking story. Why do you want to go through it again?
That's not what happened.
Yeah.
Exactly. Incidentally, that's the problem with anime adaptations too.
And they try to do exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Goku was never in high school. Goku's retarded.
Goku's borderline retarded.
Goku never killed Iron Man's mom.
Goku's never read a book.
Goku don't even get his license.
He has a license. He doesn't.
No, he doesn't.
No, didn't he fail the driver's test?
Remember there's an episode where he's got like a suit on and Chi-Chi makes him put on a suit and he goes in line and DMV and actually takes his test, but he's too strong, so the car keeps exploding.
You know what? There are bad changes you can make. Like, imagine there was a Dragon Ball movie and Goku got his first car and it was like a Ford Nimbus. It only starts if you're pure of heart.
Vegeta, pure H. It's like a Mustang.
It's the Ford Mustang.
You gotta stay true. What people find hard is that you gotta make changes.
Bro.
You've gotta make changes, but you've gotta stay true to the art of the original.
To the heart of the original.
Yeah, to the humanistic, because every art piece is created by a human, and a human being puts some kind of art, like love and heart. Like when a human wrote Captain America, he wrote.
Really? I didn't know.
When humans
I thought it was a dog.
When humans wrote
just
Captain America, this art piece was created from a human mind.
Yeah.
There was human emotions in this character. So a director's job is to see what the writer was saying, and then take that and do homage to it, and then still make it his own thing, because that whole imitation is the best type of flattery. Because technically they're imitating these artworks. Right. And making it their own, but they have to keep, like, they kept the essence of Captain America, which is the idea of justice. When these two Jewish people got together and wrote, what was that, Superman? I might be confusing them, but Superman, right? But still,
and Joe Shuster.
Yeah. So sorry, I confuse Captain America and Superman's creators all the time. But basically, when these creators created like Captain America, they created him to fight.
But you
Nazis.
know what?
And he was like,
Jews invented Captain America too.
I'm right, yeah. So it's like, yeah, they created him to fight Hitler and the Nazis because he was supposed to represent the hope and spirit that they had against what was going on during the Nazi movement. So when they took this character and gave
also America.
Yeah, and America. And when they took this character and brought it to the screen, that's what you had to kind of stay honored to. Make it your own way, but you still keep the idea that this character is supposed to
punching honor
symbolize the ideas of hope So when Captain America fights back in Civil War,
I hope I get to punch this Nazi.
he's the guy. He's the symbol. Like even when if you watch First Avenger, which I recently finally got to see, and that scene where he's like, I'm tired of not doing anything, it just suits up and goes into war after being like a
pussy,
scrawny little kid.
Not even that. Like he
Stage
he
monkey.
was just like a stage monkey. Like he was just going like
After he had done the experiment and everything.
Okay, but even
when he was just like a
spokesperson for
yeah,
bonds.
he was just
war
an
purpose.
icon. He was just an icon for audience's sake.
Yeah, and he did nothing, and he wanted to find the war. But yeah, even going back to before, where he wanted to find the war no matter what.
Right.
If you look at the movie, like there's another movie that I just Hacksaw Ridge, which is based on an actual person. This guy wanted to be in the war so much, but he didn't want to kill. He went in as a medic,
right?
And he's famous. He saved hundreds of people. So he kind of had that real life thing that Captain America's character had in a human being.
Right.
You know, a real human person joined the war, refused to use a gun, refused to touch a gun, and saved hundreds of people in war.
Very, very beautiful, very altruistic, which is what Captain America is.
Yes, exactly. And you see that there's a human element there. Mm-hmm. So even when he became super buff American man, he still had that.
Right.
He went in, and I feel like maybe that was inspired because he did the same thing. He went into that place and saved hundreds of soldiers and brought them back.
And I feel like that's the kind of storytelling we still need in this day and age, because I feel like in this day and age it's become uncool to like superheroes who are altruistic and who fight for their fellow human beings. This is one thing I liked about the movie Wonder Woman. She's altruistic. Mm-hmm. She's a good person, and it's not because her parents died when she was young, and it's not because she came from an alien planet. It's not because she feels this drive to help people because somebody wronged her. She just cares about her fellow man or woman. Am I right, guys?
I wonder which one it is.
And you know, like, we need more characters that act like that. One big opposition to that idea is Man of Steel. And in talking about bringing the heart of a character on screen, I don't feel like Man of Steel accomplished that, because sure, it's a competent story. I won't say it's a stupid movie. I won't say it's a dumb movie. I just completely disagree with where it's coming from. Because I just don't feel that it gets the character of Superman right. And there's it's true. You can have differences in your adaptations. But when you're betraying the idea of what Superman is, of what a character is,
without reason,
without something to say,
that drove this character to that point of difference.
Exactly. Then I feel like it's just edge for edge's sake, and you're trying to make it different for no reason.
That in a nutshell, like, I think encapsulates everything Zack Snyder is. He's always given these things, but he doesn't really understand what his people like about it.
Right.
He just puts, like, he has this high school mentality, this middle school mentality of what he thinks is cool about it.
Right. It looks cool. So
he's like, Superman, he beats shit and he got heat vision and all that, but it's like, yeah, but you're forgetting the fact that there's something human that people love about him, and that's what you're forgetting.
I think that's why 300 did so well, is because
it didn't need that bullshit.
That's what it is.
It's just a bunch of buff guys going,
yeah. When I heard a story. I heard an on-set story that whenever Zack Snyder and Henry Cavill disagreed about something Superman would do or a decision he would make, they would decide over who would win. They would decide over who would win that argument with whoever could do the most push-ups.
Oh no.
And I don't think that's the right way. You know, right? How did Zack Snyder win any of those?
Because Henry Cavill's ripped as hell.
Did Henry Cavill direct Man of Steel?
Whoa.
You heard it here first, folks.
But I see what you're saying. Like, that's a very, like, machismo mentality.
Exactly. Like, and Superman is very much not a machismo character. I mean, he's obviously strong.
But that was the beauty of him, that he was a strong man with a weak heart. Because he cared.
I wouldn't say weak heart.
He was a big buff man.
I meant
strong.
I meant weak heart in the idea that it's like he cared when a human died.
Broke.
Right. Very caring, very nurturing.
Okay, a very open heart. A very solid man with an open heart. Yeah. And
solid in that a bullet can't pierce his skin.
Eyeball.
But open in that he would watch Beauty and the Beast. But
Superman would love Beauty and the Beast.
Superman would love La La Land.
okay, Clark Kent would take Lois Lane to see La La
He
Land,
would.
and
And then
he
fly
was-
her in the actual
breakfast.
stars.
and
And
he
like
would-
green.
yeah, Clark Kent would low-key cry at La La Land, and then he'd be like, did you like the movie, Lois? And then Lois would be like, oh yeah, it made me think of Superman, and then he'd go home and cry that night.
Like masturbates to her picture in the Superman suit. Lois.
Clark just like, I just got cooked by myself.
Greatest movie ever made.
Clark Kent's his own biggest cuck.
I'd watch that over Man of Steel any day.
But yeah, the idea that they because it's like Injustice has that whole idea where Superman turned evil.
Don't get me started on
But-
Injustice.
But what made it better than Man of Steel
Right.
was that at least there was something that got him there. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it didn't
There
just
was
come
a-
out of nowhere. There was an event.
There was a catalyst that
yeah,
just came.
exactly.
That
there
like
was a
pushed
catalyst.
him to slowly like, and then eventually there's implied time between this happens, so it gets sped forward, of course.
Right.
But there were things that happened, and then eventually it built up to him.
But they
saying-
challenge that again. He's basically Hitler at the end of it for no
Yeah.
real reason.
Again, in Injustice 2, that made no sense because they didn't like nothing was changing him, even though it should have.
And it's weird because it happens like in the span of like seconds. Because Superman will be like, oh,
let's
man,
be friends.
Remember the good old days,
Then,
and,
like,
Batman, yeah,
next scene.
yeah. Then suddenly he's Hitler again.
Yeah, so like Injustice 2, but like at least there was a reason that he became this evil Superman at the beginning. While Zack Snyder was, I think the whole time he made Superman feel like humans were a burden to him. Like it was a burden to save these
Yeah.
people. And he's like, oh,
It's like
I
a
have to
curse.
give my life for these people. You don't.
Yeah.
They even say it in Batman v Superman. You owe nothing to these people. But those words are meaningless because it's like, but you act like you do. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I gotta save everybody. You're like, that's not
And
Superman.
it
no.
bothers me so much that Pa Kent was the one to tell Clark like, oh, don't let anyone know that you have superpowers. The world isn't ready for that. I'm like, oh, you guys, Superman is a family man.
Yeah.
I was about to say Family Guy.
Don't
Superman
get
is
so started on Family Guy.
oh no.
I'm good.
That's where we would cut away, and there would be a wacky clip of Saul talking about Family Guy.
That has actual comedic talents to it.
Yeah.
Rather than the entire the rest of it.
You guys are worried about me making Family Guy jokes? You guys are the ones doing it right now.
Yeah, but in an ironic way.
How ironic.
And Superman is a family man, and he gets that from the way Jonathan
raised.
and Martha Kent
Mhm.
raised him.
Yeah.
You know, he's an alien, but he's very much human.
See, in a weird way, that's what Smallville got right.
Yeah.
Towards the end, they kind of showed off a little place. But then, like those first few seasons where he lives with Jonathan and Martha Kent, and like Jonathan Kent's spoilers still alive. You know, there's that whole familial thing, and he's growing up as a teenager, and his powers are manifesting. He can't control them, so his family come together and help him learn how to control those powers. And as he grows, he makes mistakes. Like he does use his X-ray vision, so he grows naked, and then like they explain to him like, oh, that's bad, you know. And he kind of grows into the Superman we know today, who's very like honorable, very chivalrous, very like, you know,
Yes,
I do what I do because it's right, not because I have to.
Yes, he's very much a farm boy. He's nothing more than that in terms of why he does the things he does.
Exactly.
He's just like you or me in that if you saw like some guy beating up an old lady across the street, you'd do something about it.
Unless you're Deadpool, you take forever changing your costume.
He's not Deadpool. You know, Superman does these things. He helps people because he feels it's his responsibility, and not because he lost someone. Well, he lost Krypton, but he didn't.
Did he
have,
really though? Because he didn't really know it.
Exactly. He was a baby.
Knew his
He didn't
memory.
have any attachment to it
Yeah.
until after he
But
learned
see,
about it.
the cool thing is, even, I mean, again, bring back Smallville, but there was parts where he even fights, like he's like, why do I have to help these people, blah 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 blah, like why can't I use my power for evil? And there are episodes where he does use his power for evil. He robs banks and he becomes really rich and he becomes part of the, but then he realizes that it threatens his family, and then he's like, oh crap, I shouldn't be doing this because now my family is in threat and people are coming to my house and they're not impenetrable by bullets. Then again, he chooses not to do it anymore.
Wait, not everyone's invincible?
Well, yeah, like, no, like he's like, you know, like he realizes like
Why do you
shit,
have guns?
I can
They
devastate
kill his
these-
mom?
I
Oh
can
my
live
God.
through these events,
She doesn't have
but my family
powers?
can't.
Right.
And
Where did I
because he's
get
doing
this
all these
from?
evil things, his family becomes in danger,
Right.
and then he realizes, oh snap, I shouldn't do that.
He realizes that with great power comes great responsibility.
Yes,
Back to the core point. I think
Superman needs a better movie.
yes. First of all, Man of Steel sucked. Back to the core point is that adaptations should stick to the heart. and
that's what Spider-Man: Homecoming did right.
oh, definitely.
Oh,
they
right
did so many things differently than from the comics.
Oh, it created incredibly different.
So many things,
but
different.
they kept
But
the essence.
Here's the thing: even though everything was different, I still cheered at the parts that were the same because Betty Brant is a journalist.
Oh, they kept her in the
She was in the high
news
school.
thing. Yeah.
She was in high school. She was a high school journalist.
Yeah.
And you know what? I didn't give a shit as long as Betty Brant was in it and her
I didn't give a
character
shit.
was
Fuck Betty.
fuck this character. No.
But they kept Betty Brant as a journalist.
Betty Brant was still the same character. I can assume that
Just adapted to high school.
right, that she was still an altruistic, very noble journalist who was out seeking the truth, and she would eventually grow into that Daily Bugle reporter in the future of the MCU. And
See, that's
you
what
know?
MCU does. They build their characters. Because even now, Spider-Man, spoilers. Spider-Man,
Jesus.
I had to keep saying that
Spoilers.
to avoid that. But Spider-Man,
Spoilers.
towards the end of the movie, like towards the film, he's not really the Spider-Man. He's still kind of a child, really
He's Spider-Boy.
fantasizing about these powers and fantasizing about being a
that's
hero.
his arc in the movie.
Yeah.
He becomes Spider-Man in that
And
movie.
then he arcs into actually becoming a hero, not just saying, "Oh, I want to be a hero because it's so amazing. I want to be like Tony Stark." He wants to be worthy
right.
of being Spider-Man.
Well, that was one of the main points of the movie when like he had an argument with Tony Stark. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm nothing without this suit. It's like,
And
then
he's
you
like-
shouldn't have it then. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
if that's what you think
exactly.
Spider-Man is.
Exactly.
Then why would you want to be Spider-Man? Like that's not who you are.
But they
like,
Marvel nailed it. Yeah.
exactly. So that's when like he got to realize like that scene. Spoilers when he's crushed under the building. When he was like, oh help, someone help me. He realized, you know what? Like I'm Spider-Man. I should be like doing like better than this.
Yeah, and that is an iconic scene in the comic books. There's a scene I can't remember exactly why, but I have the issue. It's like I think Doc Ock or somebody like just dropped a bunch of rubble on him,
It was
and
Doc Ock, if I remember
he's
correctly.
like they're crushed and he wants to give up. He's like, I shouldn't be doing
Right,
this.
at that point, Aunt
Yeah.
May is sick and he needs to
Yeah,
get
and he just wants to quit
medicine to
life.
her. She's gonna die if he doesn't get out.
Yeah,
and he
And
believes
then
in himself.
The scene is him picking up. And you see water coming down. It's him like remembering why he became Spider-Man.
Exactly.
Why he does what he does.
He remembers the mantra
Full.
that his Uncle Ben gave
Yeah.
him and why he does
And
the things he does.
here we didn't have the mantra.
Right.
Ideally.
Well,
'cause
we've had
it-
an adaptation of the mantra.
Shut the fuck up.
Okay.
We did?
It wasn't. I mean, the thing Iron Man said is, I guess, in the same vein.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, the same feel, but
Yeah.
like we did, like he could have,
We-
they could have easily gone cheesy and be like,
Yeah,
with
we
great
didn't-
power comes great responsibility.
I am so glad that Tony Stark didn't say that in
Yeah.
Homecoming.
Originally, that's how they recorded it.
I heard.
Yeah. Originally, that's what the line was supposed to be, but then they switched it because like, oh, okay, no, people have heard that too many times. It's just,
Thank God. No, it's not about hearing it too many times. It's about the fact that Tony Stark would have said it.
Yeah, coming
Because-
out of Tony Stark.
Yeah. No, it needs
coming
to
out of
come.
Captain America, it would have fit.
It
Yeah.
Who was
needs.
the original Avengers to join the movie?
But
Not
who's too
even
busy
that.
doing
I
detention
wouldn't even
movies?
have liked it if it came from Captain America
Oh, okay.
because it needs to come from Uncle Ben.
Oh,
That's true.
because
It needs
is
to
the
come from.
Uncle Ben
It
thing.
needs to come from someone that he lost.
Mhm.
It needs to be the words of someone that's not with him anymore.
What if they kill
Someone-
off Iron Man and that's his last words?
Oh, that's the theory that's been going around.
Just
I'm
the
just
one,
saying,
Just
I'm
the
just
one
saying.
thing, kid.
That's
Like Thanos punches him through the chest, and then Iron Man is like on the floor.
No, he's like still on Thanos' fist. It's just like it's like laying on his fist, like with great power.
And then Spider-Man is like, "Oh my gosh! I finally realized that with great power comes great responsibility." Trademark.
And it's at that moment. Thanos like rips his hand out of like Tony Stark's chest.
Yeah.
Thanos like, pussies.
Yeah. And then Spider-Man,
he grabs
Here's
the
another
gauntlet and
planet.
becomes Cosmic
right,
Spidey.
Spider-Man looks up and he looks at Thanos and he's got anger in his eyes and he jumps at Thanos and Thanos grabs him by the head and crushes him.
But the
One
fact that he
swipe.
was fighting with great power and great responsibility.
Yeah, that's what matters.
Yeah.
That's what matters.
Spider-Man died.
You think
But
Cosmic
his message
Spidey's
is
gonna
still
get
here.
But he knew his
some time, though,
responsibility.
like, for real, like Cosmic Spider-Man.
You know what? I have thought about that before.
Well,
I wonder if
kinda-
like Captain Universe Spider-Man will make an
Yeah,
appearance.
He's gonna show up.
I mean, probably not Captain Universe Spider-Man, because that'll be like completely out of fucking nowhere. That's like if like fucking Adam Warlock just swooped in out of nowhere.
Adam Warlock.
Yeah.
No, I know that's a real thing. I'm just saying it's just so funny that actually he'd be the most randomest character you thought of. Like you just have him come out.
Why is that random?
Because it's Adam Warlock.
He was a key player during the Thanos.
Let me have this, goddammit.
All right, I'll leave Saul alone.
I'll allow it.
This is his free.
I
This
can't
is,
just agree with you, goddammit.
this is his free token. You know, there you go. There's
Now
a
we need
noise
to
for his
buy a
free
truck.
token.
I think my dog's
Probably.
dead.
But
it's hiding here forever.
yeah, that's what makes the Spider-Man Homecoming adaptation so good. Because technically, it's adapting like it has 5 movies behind it, It has all the comic book views. It's got the Ultimate Universe, the Spider-Man universe, the Peter Parker universe. It's got tons of material to adapt.
Right.
So it's even longer than most animes. Yeah, you heard me, weebles. It's even longer than most mangas or anime series alone. So how did they do it? How did they take all these stories and pick the right characters, the right arcs, and the right moments to really tell a story that made me walk out of the theater and go, damn, like that was good. And it's because they
chose the right writers.
They chose the right writers who kept the right message or the right heart of these characters.
They chose writers who understood the heart of Spider-Man rather than what was cool about Spider-Man.
Exactly. I mean, it's exactly what Jose said when he keeps to the heart. Because look at that one little scene, again, spoilers, when Vulture explodes and Spider-Man still...
You made it sound like he just fucking burst into flames.
He does. He does. He just burst
still does it. And then
it's
like Vulture's just like, I got you.
Think about it. Any random person would have been like, oh crap, he's dead. But even Spider-Man still went in there to save him. Even though this is the one guy who was like, I'm gonna kill you, Spider-Man.
And
even threatened him like in front of his own car.
They could have copped out. They could have super copped out, and they had an after-credit scene where they hinted Scorpion. I'm calling that Scorpion. That's so.
No, that's not even a theory. It's confirmed.
That's his name, like the actual character.
Yeah, the
character's name.
Scorpion.
He's got a fucking Scorpion.
I never heard his character's name, that's why, but I figured because
Gargan.
I like who they cast. That's fucking Voss from Far Cry 3, who played a crazy guy, so I can't wait to see this guy have the power of Scorpion.
That's Voss?
Yeah, that's Voss from Far Cry 3.
Wow, I didn't know.
That's his voice. But they could have copped out, and they could have just been like, oh, do you know who Peter Parker is? Yeah, let's go get him. And then like easily,
Amazing Spider-Man. Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah. And then like really
my cough is really specific these days.
Forced the Sinister Six, but they stood true to his character because he kept saying like the ideas of like, oh, you saved my daughter, so I'll let you free, blah blah blah. Like he's not. Vulture isn't a villain in this story. He's just a man trying to get by.
Fuck the daughter, he saved him.
He's an anti-hero.
In a way,
Kinda.
yeah. And that's why, because Spider-Man saved him and his daughter and his family, basically, because he could have died and his family would have had nobody to support them or be there for them. He saved their entire family. He doesn't tell them. He says, if I knew who Spider-Man was, I would have killed him myself.
You know Spider-Man, Peter Parker, Snow.
But you know, so till the end, they kept it. Like till the after credit scene, this character was still there. They didn't cop out. They kept it. So now, I'm up in the arms. If Sinister Six is gonna happen, how it can happen in the MCU or in whatever Sony universe. Because technically, this is a Sony movie, but also MCU movie.
The deal was that Marvel writes the movie, but Sony gets all the movie profits of the movies. But that's because Marvel knows that they get more money off of merchandising than they do the actual movie.
So Sony can still do the canon or whatever and build Sinister Six, but at least they have a setup. Like they have Shocker in this world already, they have Vulture in this world, and they have Scorpion. That's 3. You only need to set up 3 more characters.
I thought the first
Fox would probably still fuck this up. But if Fox goes along with whatever their Sinister Six movie,
if Fox keeps up this deal, Sony. If Sony keeps up the deal of letting Marvel handle, if Sony keeps up the deal of letting Marvel handle how the movie goes, like in terms of writing, then it'll execute it well. But if Sony's the one that handles the sequel completely, and it's like, okay, we know how this has gone before with the 2 Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
John Spider-Man.
Because Amazing Spider-Man was bad. I kept giving it hope and saying, oh yeah, when they all come out.
I think after we saw it, everyone else was talking shit about it. You were the only one saying, no, we have to wait for the other 2.
Yeah, I kept saying that. I was like, no, wait, no.
And that's when I kept telling you, I was like, it doesn't, we don't have to wait for the other 2 to like this one movie.
I know, but like
there's
when
no
they all
fucking
came
point
out,
in having a movie. If to like it, you need to see the sequels.
When all 8 came out and as a whole, they'd be great. Like I literally believe that. Like I was like, no, like when they all come out as a series, like
that was the start of my whole hatred of cliffhanger. And like I think I told you that the Star Wars movie I enjoyed the most ended up becoming the one I liked the least because of that whole ending. I was like, well, we'll see you next time in the next movie. See what happens.
Because they knew at that point they were gonna make another movie.
Yeah, at that point they knew for sure that the movie was coming.
Which is what I like about Marvel is how they put their cliffhangers in separation of the entire film.
But it's not even like actual. It's not cliffhangers of the plot told in the story. It's like a tease of what's to come.
Yeah, there you go. So it's not a cliffhanger. It's a tease.
Yeah.
So I like that better. Like this spoilers. This movie ends with Aunt May figuring out that he's Spider-Man because she walks in on him in the costume.
Hold on, what the?
But that aside, like if you remove that part of the movie, I still had a film. You know, at the end of the day, I still had a movie. And then that part was just fun. Like, oh look, Aunt May knows. Yeah, I can't wait for the next movie. But it's like I already had a movie to enjoy. So if I want to go back and watch this, it's okay. I don't feel like, oh, now I gotta wait for the next movie to see if Captain Jack Sparrow actually died in the goddamn octopus scene where he gets eaten.
Those bullshit. It transformed in my head. I was like, fuck that ending.
I was so mad. I was like, God damn, I gotta wait for the next movie. And then the next movie comes and like, oh, so y'all just went and got him back? Damn it. I paid for this. But my mom really liked the movie. So
I paid twice to finish one story.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. It's like, oh, he gets eaten, and then it gets over, and the next movie's like, oh, we saved him. And I'm like, oh.
He's like, I was shout out.
I wanted more. But yeah. But then that brings it back to the idea of just writing a story. Like, that's what The Dark Knight did so well. Because even The Dark Knight itself was a concise story.
Each movie in the Dark Knight trilogy was its own concise story.
First of all, what the fuck is a Dark Knight? I've never heard of these movies. I definitely don't like them. Just kidding, they're my favorite movies of all time. Yeah, definitely. Each of those movies in the Dark Knight trilogy are
good.
They're standalone stories. Literally, true story.
The only thing that goes from each movie to each movie is the fact that Batman is all three, and of course he remembers what happened before.
Right. Okay, true story. I watched The Dark Knight without knowing about Batman Begins because I was a kid, and I went to go see The Dark Knight in theaters, and I didn't have any trouble folling it. I didn't need to watch.
Yeah, because you don't need to. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's its own well written, concise, solid story.
I didn't need to learn to accept the fact that Batman exists.
Yeah.
Because I don't
think a child and you were like, yeah, of course Batman exists.
Of course Batman exists.
I am not gonna lie. When I first saw Dark Knight, I thought that was the first ever Batman movie. I didn't see Batman.
Like ever?
No, not ever. I understand there's one with Michael Keaton.
I can't believe The Dark Knight admits Batman.
No, I know there's the one with Michael Keaton, the one with Val Kilmer, but like the first one when I first saw dang, I forgot the name of the guy who plays
It's Christian Bale.
Christian Bale.
George Clooney.
I thought this is actually the first one Christian Bale. Like, oh, this is Christian Bale's version of Batman. I thought The Dark Knight was. I didn't hear anything about Batman Begins. But just like you guys said, like the Dark Knight was such a singular story. Like it was good just the way it was. I think it's all over the story.